All right, well, today I'll be presenting some insights from PRRS outbreaks that have occurred within our system and then subsequent findings that we found during the investigations. So hope to focus on the on-site biosecurity changes that we've been able to make, but there would be a few external factors as well that I'll share through these. So I guess misery loves company. I'm hoping that I can utilize our unfortunate PRRS breaks this year to find a silver lining. So in the last 18 months, there have been 8 breaks within the system, and 7 out of 8 of those breaks, we feel like we've been able to definitively, nail down where that entry may have occurred. So first, I'll kind of go through the investigation tools that we utilize during these PRRS breaks. So being able to implement some newer technologies to help get to the root cause of what we've seen. So additionally, some farm level reporting and OR5 sequencing would have been used for those as well. And then we'll go through each case, case by case, kind of focusing on the primary one. But all of them kind of had a theme. They're high health farms. Most of them were in remote locations and no immediate obvious source of introduction. And then last, we'll share the outcomes and strategies that we've implemented within our system. Most of those are focused on critical control points, ability to respond rapidly, and then how we've upgraded technology and how compliance has been key to making some of these changes. So first, I'll hit on the investigation tools. I think this is a big difference that we've been able to implement in the last couple years, really leaning into technology and embracing, different things that we are, able to look at. The first one being geofencing. So we've adopted a geofencing program called Farm Health Guardian. I'll show you on the next slide how that's set up. But ultimately, it's a geofence on the properties, and then geolocation on anything that may potentially enter that property. So it could be trucks, people, delivery drivers, feed trucks, our jetters are geofenced, so pretty much anything that might enter that space. And then we also we'd have camera technology at most of our sow farms. These would be really focused around those critical control points. Next investigation tool would be kind of our standard investigation protocol. So utilizing that standardized outbreak investigation tool that Iowa State has, as well as really working on farms to train their farm level reporting and being able to keep records on farm as well. Lastly, these investigations wouldn't have been possible without the molecular tools that are available. So utilizing our OR5 sequencing, and then the BLAST, the SDRS BLAST, or the Iowa State BLAST that's out there to help look for links, and then hoping that we've got good neighbors willing to share and make those connections so we can dive deeper into the epidemiology of the breaks. So this would be our Farm Health Guardian system setup. So I'd mentioned that we've got a perimeter. This is not one of our farms, this would be just an example, but a perimeter gets drawn around the farm. So this can be around the farm itself, maybe it includes a lagoon, maybe it includes a drop-off location, but we go in and we set all of those. So then we would ask our team members who are going to farms to download this app onto their phone, and it just kind of lives in the background, and anytime that phone then crosses the geofence, we get a timestamp ping, and then we can pull up those records later. So anybody that is employed by our company that goes onto farms would have this. Our maintenance team, contracted maintenance, if Jamie can hunt them down, and then any visitors to the farm would all have this app downloaded. And then kind of the beauty of the system is and I'm guessing most systems would have this, but there's already GPS in the fleets. So most of our owned trucks or even our owned personal farm vehicles would all have GPS systems. So we've been able to integrate with a couple, NextTrack, and I don't know, there's a couple other ones that we've been able to integrate with there. And for our trailers that don't have the GPS already in the device, we've installed a taillight system. So that taillight has the GPS device and it will ping as it goes across. We Also, there's some smaller devices, some solar devices that we've put on, farming equipment and maintenance equipment to help ping. So within this software, we are able to do outbreak investigations and like a really quick outbreak report. So it's all built in. We just put in the site, the date that we think that the outbreak occurred, an incubation period, which just basically sets back how far it's going to pull information from that date that the outbreak occurred, and then it will report any connections. So this is just an example. So put in this farm, said I think it broke on June 2nd. I want 21 days, and then you can filter out, but I want to link every single property type that we'd potentially have, and then any type of trucks that would be in the system, and let's pull all those connections. So within about a minute, it gives me a report of the disease, the disease investigation and the movement data. And so within this, it actually also, get kind of a weather report for that time. So for all these breaks that we think might be aerosol related, at least we've got some information on temperature, humidity, and wind direction during that time. But then we do get a nice handy dandy output of every single person device that has gone along with the time stamp. So like here'd be a feed truck. This feed truck then on May 12th went to all these sites at all these times. So you can follow it all the way across and able to make connections between the different sites it was at and the farm in question. So to jump into the cases, I think this first case was kind of what started it all, being able to utilize all of the software and the technology and put this together to figure out what's going on with our biosecurity. So this first case was two 2,500 sow farms. And I guess I'll go through all of them. So case 2 was a 1,500 sow farm. Case 3 won't focus on a ton, but there'd be 4 unrelated sow farms that range from 2,500 to 10,000 sows, and then a bonus case with Delta Corona. But wanted to share, so this is kind of the landscape that we are working with. Out in the sandhills of Nebraska, there's not, the sites in question, there's just not a ton of sites nearby. So having these remote locations kind of forced us to rule out area spread and dig deeper on what was actually going on. So this case 1, it's a set of two 2,500 sow farms. Both are unfiltered. No pigs within a 50-mile radius. The farm reported early farrows, and that was on a Sunday, confirmed PRRS positive the next day. So that farm immediately depopped. The sister farm broke. A couple weeks later, it was immediately depopped. So 5,000 sows depopped pretty quickly, took a lot of trailers. But so as this is going on, obviously starting the outbreak investigation. So all these outbreak investigations are very standard. We pulled visitor logs, entries, deliveries, transport records, feed deliveries, and through all that with help of Farm Health Guardian, ruled out any live haul. There were no gilt entries during this time period. There's a couple coal loads, but not really many. So just really not a lot of pig traffic in and out of the farms. Aerosol obviously ruled out. There's no pigs in 50 miles. Farm Health Guardian helped us rule out any type of visitors. There just wasn't any traffic to the farm. Feed was ruled out. This is a toll mill, but we were able to go through and work with that mill to figure out who they delivered to, and there was absolutely no risk there, which left us with entries and deliveries. So when we went through and did the PRRS sequencing, we were able to get that OR5 back in 2 to 3 days. Realized that there's no match within our system at all. So did utilize SDRS and networks to compare, and sure enough, there's a 100% match. Thankfully, that system was very willing to share, and we were able to then figure out, okay, what were any potential connections between these farms and that particular farm B. So, they're really not even geographically close. So again, there was that 100% match. Once we looked through the connections, we were able to identify that there, sure enough, was a delivery driver that actually got shared between 2 farms. So then kind of dig in a little bit deeper and say, hey, did you guys notice anything off with this delivery? The farm said, oh, well, yeah, actually, they didn't show up until like midnight on the night that they were supposed to deliver this. And it was kind of weird. You know, they shoved everything in the fridge, everything spilled out. But there was no further reporting. It just kind of got left there. They thought it was important enough that they did take a picture of it, but still decided to bring the delivery and the genetics into the farm that day. So for these case 1 findings, we were able to determine that PRRS was introduced to the farm via contaminated delivery. So stuff happens. PRRS gets to the site. That was unfortunate. So that was definitely a breakdown in our delivery protocols. It was non-routine. It showed up at midnight, and late at night. But at the end of the day, that PRRS still crossed the line of separation and entered our farm via a failure critical control point. We should have all of our biosecurity protocols set up, so even if there's PRRS right outside or PRRS on those supplies, it shouldn't come in. So part of that failure was execution of the CCP. Maybe it was our protocols in general, and then also the farm reporting, but then they didn't change their behavior. They knew that supply and that semen got delivered. It was on the floor. It was abnormal, yet everything still went in. Nobody took extra care during that process to bring it in. So case 2, 1500 sow farm, again, unfiltered in a very remote location. This one we didn't find on clinical signs. We found on we do heat check bore oral fluids every week and found a PRRS positive there. That farm did get depuped as well. I think I've got the time. Yeah, so the timeline on this one is January 2nd. Back to case 1, that timeline was the beginning of November, and we're depuping 5,000 sows during this November-December period. So again, then this one breaks in January. So we do the same thing. We do the PRRS sequencing. We review all of our visitor logs, entries, deliveries, transport records, feed deliveries. So that PRRS sequencing did yield a match within the system, and sure enough, it matches case 1. So based on location, we obviously ruled aerosol out. We were able to utilize Farm Health Guardian again to rule out any type of visitors or people. Completely separate feed mills, so we did rule out feed in this case. Entries and deliveries were ruled out, so there was no shared delivery drivers, nothing. We increased our CCPs after the last break. But we get to live haul, and we find a complete breakdown in how trailers got scheduled. So it was abnormal to depup a 5,000 sow farm. All those trailers that got used to depup that 5,000 sow farm, one of them ended up getting pulled to do a internal gilt movement from the isolation to the sow farm, and sure enough, find it and broke the farm. So, whoops, yeah. The trailer was washed, disinfected, and baked, but it was still out of ordinary. It shouldn't have been used at that farm. So we were able to confirm live haul. The geofencing software was used to confirm that connection and rule out all the other connections. We know that those wash protocols were followed, but that led us to realize, okay, we need to do a better job of trailer assignments. And the other thing, this reaffirmed that shipping site, we do a 3-stage loadout. So we talk about on-farm biosecurity practices that work. That 3-stage loadout did protect that shipping isolation site from the PRRS break, and it never ended up breaking. So case 3 was a little bit different. These sow farms were not exactly in remote locations. They weren't exactly, farms that, if they break with PRRS, it's like, okay, well, this has happened before. So we had these 4 sow farms break within 3 weeks of each other, 2 25s, a 54, and a 10. And this occurred in May. So completely separate from those other PRRS breaks. 3 of the 4 farms were filtered at the time, but they've got this kind of history of breaks. So, the first one, the isolation was positive. We depuped it. We couldn't get a sequence, so there was kind of a lot of noise going on. And in the meantime, all these other farms are breaking. So we were a little delayed on the PRRS sequencing for this. We were able to, since it was in isolation, immediately test all guilt sources and confirm that they are negative on oral fluids testing. Our guilt sites do really robust testing every week across multiple labs. So again, kind of blinded by the fact that these are high-risk areas, high-frequency breaks, so assume that this is probably area spread or breakdown of transport processes. We had a whole bunch of grow finish sites break during spring pumping and kind of just assumed, all right, this is it. So I think just being blinded by history, kind of ignored, some things that we needed to look at there. But did immediately implement heightened biosecurity practices across the system because of that. So same thing, able to go through and do the outbreak investigation, reviewed all visitor logs, entries, deliveries, transport records, and feed deliveries. So aerosol ended up being rolled out, but only sort of by the PRRS sequencing. There's more pig density there. Visitors were sort of ruled out. There was some mowing that was shared, so that was kind of murky. Feed was sort of ruled out. So like all these, the visitor order on Farm Health Guardian said there should never have been a break, but you just, kind of the back of your mind wonder. Entries and deliveries were ruled out. And then when we get to the live haul, there was one connection with all 4 of these farms. I'll hit it on the next slide. But it was kind of glaringly obvious once we had that geofencing record what it was. So during this time, then got the PRRS sequencing back. It was delayed just because we were getting such high CTs. And we did find matches within the system. All 4 farms were identical. And strangely enough, the strain did match some breaks that we had 25 weeks prior. So again, we had a bias of farm history and location confidence in PRRS PCR testing. What we came to find is the one common link was actually the GDU. So this GDU had been testing every single week for 25 weeks, but there were some guilts that had been weaned there from the positive farms that broke back in November. So we feel like we trust our testing and we have a lot of confidence in that testing. And again, just really blinded by overconfidence in testing and bias towards the farms. So went back, tested the GDU with ELISAs. I think Joel Neer mentioned today the power of ELISA testing. And it's very real. So they were all positive and realized, okay, this break, we got now up to 27,000 sows positive, and it all stemmed from one stupid mistake, not bringing in genetics and supplies correctly way back in November. So the last one, case 4, this is just kind of the bonus case. Filtered 1,500 sow farm, Delta Corona, positive test in isolation, depopped the ISO pretty quickly. Same thing, followed all of our processes, obviously not aerosol. Visitors were completely ruled out. No one had been to the site or to the ISO. Feed was ruled out. Entries and deliveries were ruled out, but gosh darn that live haul. There were some discrepancies. So we found out that the trailers that were scheduled were not the trailers that actually ended up doing the gilt delivery. So when we dug into it, we wanted to understand the accuracy of what we scheduled for trailers versus which trailers were actually doing the deliveries. And actually it was not great. About 50% of them were getting swapped or not used correctly. And it's a busy place. We're able to see the number of hits at each of these truck washes where some of the swaps were occurring, but these truck washes are getting hit, 86 times a day on one, 24 times a day on another, 38 times on another. So one of those is the high health genetic wash, but those other 2, a lot of swaps can occur. So case 4 findings, we do believe this was a transport associated risk. We have an unknown trailer, mystery trailer, that hauled those replacement gilts to the sow farm. The shipping farm did ultimately break, actually with Delta Corona, but it broke a little bit later than the isolation did, a couple days later. So we do believe that a contaminated trailer, probably one that hauled a co-load to a packing plant, was the source. So this year did provide a lot of time for reflection. and ability to do some system improvements. But ultimately, it all comes back down to this retraining of CCPs. We know we brought PRRS to a farm, and we know we failed to prevent that PRRS from entering the site. Additionally, with the amount of, risk of delivery, being sure that the order that stuff is going in is the order that you're prescribing, that you know exactly who's delivering stuff to your farm and where they're going. A lot of this was related to live haul, so upgrading some of our transport requirements and putting rules within Farm Health Guardian to alert us immediately if a trailer does, veer off of its scheduled path. And then lastly, evaluating those guilt testing processes. So what we've found is the biggest risk is a trailer that has hauled positive animals and then gets used at a high health facility. Our goal is to only use trailers as assigned for special movements and reduce the number of market trailers that would ever touch any other type of load. So at the end of the day, that one critical control point failure led to 27,000 sows breaking with PRRS. So biosecurity is definitely worth the investment. Having those CCPs easy to execute, making sure that you've got an auditing system in place, a training system in place to make sure that all those processes are going according to plan, and then sure as heck train your farm teams. If something is out of ordinary, report that quickly. If we don't get sows bred for a day, it's not the end of the world because we didn't get sows bred for 3 weeks with the depop. So that is what I had. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Christine. Great presentation, and what a great use of that technology to really identify those hazards and introduction routes. Any questions for Christine? Yeah. Oh, she's got you.
For the situations where the wrong trailer was used, and maybe you said it, but were those trailers that went there by mistake, were those baked?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so all of those trailers would have been washed, disinfected, and then TAD baked, theoretically. Yeah, so we have a log, right? So we got a log at the truck wash. Everything was getting handwritten. And as we got into this, we realized that when they were filling out the log, they were just writing the trailer number that was on the schedule, not the trailer number that was actually in the bay. So who knows where trailer 10 actually was.
Have you implemented any different protocols for multiplication that breaks, and when you start saving gilts, or when you keep the gilts and allow them to enter into farms?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with the multiplication side was the implementing the auditing process. So it'd be like a monthly unannounced video auditing process. That's really helped drive compliance of the CCPs. Also, completely segregating any type of transport. So absolutely no transport would ever cross with a commercial farm if it's going to be going to a multiplication site. And then incorporating, our isolation testing would have now ELISA testing along with the PRRS PCR testing. So, those would be the main things. And then, also it's not worth trying to save it for a few hundred gilts. If there's any risk at all, it's just dump them.
So in light of all of your findings, have you found anything to be successful at the slat level, going into those farms and retraining, and how to keep engagement, all of those fun things?
Yeah, we're super lucky. We've got a gal that's our biosecurity specialist who's just really excellent with protocols, but she's got a lot of in-barn experience, so she does all of our training. So she does monthly training with our farm teams, our across the whole system, but then also like with our maintenance teams, and specifically walks through CCPs, specifically walks through how is your farm set up, how will you execute this on farm, and so and it's English and Spanish, so having that engagement and then the follow-up with the biosecurity audits, the video audits, and in person that are tied to a bonus structure have really upped the compliance level.
So, Christine, nice demonstration of what the technology can do for us in retrospect, but thoughts on how this technology can be used to proactively to prevent those activities from happening?
Yeah, great question. So there are, I didn't get into it, but there are ways to program this. So there are certain rules written. So based on like the site type or where the trailer's been or where the person's been, you can say, I want 3 nights down, or I want 2 nights down, or it has to have a wash, and whatever, rules need to be there. And it will immediately text an alert to our biosecurity team if any of those are violated. So have stopped probably 5 or 6 trailers in the last 6 months that was something went in the wrong order. There's also at that outbreak investigation, if you do it soon enough, there's some messaging software that we can do. So everybody that would have touched that farm in the last 7 days, you got a record, you can message and say, hey, stop what you're doing, don't go to any other farms, and implement some processes that way.
I'm just curious to say, has there been any discussion around secondary disinfectants of the trailers when they arrive at the farms?
We have not explored the on-farm disinfection process. I think that could be interesting. We used to have trailers that were, equipped to like spray, and it kind of broke down. But I do think there is a lot of value in auditing the truck washes. We're lucky we own our truck washes and we have a little more control there. But really that wash process, inspection, making sure that your disinfectant is applied at the correct rate, and then watching them all the way through the bake process too. Is it actually getting to 160? Are they holding 160? How are you measuring it? So we've been able to shore up some protocols that way, but haven't looked at the on-farm disinfection.
Christine, I can appreciate very nice presentation, and it looks cute, but I'm sure there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to try to get to those conclusions. What are your thoughts on that semen one? Because to me, okay, we threw the semen, but do you really think they had PRRS on a bag of semen? Considering, bore studs operate very good.
Yeah, no, no, I definitely, the semen was fine. It was when we looked at the order of the delivery driver had gone to that PRRS positive farm. It was muddy, it was late at night. We don't know, did they follow their booty protocol or not? So I do think the driver was the one that contaminated the area, and then when he's shoving all the deliveries and stuff in our delivery area, that was just an example. That semen came out of the fridge and landed on the floor. So I think it was the driver route, and then just those supplies got contaminated. Yeah.
With that situation, I think you alluded to it, if they had cleaned up those things and did a little more biosecurity within the delivery room or spot, you might have kept it out.
Yeah, I think if there'd been good communication, it happened late at night, the person then gets there early next morning, brings supplies into the farm. If they would have just called and said, hey, this doesn't look right, these supplies are on the floor, we'd say, don't bring any of your supplies in. Oh, by the way, we'll ship you some more semen. So I think the communication piece could have prevented some of that from ever occurring.